I'm not sure when I became obsessed with sharks. Maybe it was when I was in first grade and I felt so young and powerless against what was going on in my life that I needed something strong and powerful to look up to, and I didn't really find that in a lot of adults. But I found that in the pages of books about sharks, a giant, merciless creature, the ocean's top dog. I fell in love with the grace of the shark's slender body. The size of its teeth always inspired awe in me. I would never be afraid to bite someone if I had that size of teeth. I would never hesitate to stand up for myself. I wouldn't need to. And I think that's the real root of why I love sharks so goddamn much. Because they are the top dogs of the ocean. Of course, until humans come and rip its fin off, but that's a different poem. Speaking of which, we'll go into that poem. Sharks, Part 2. The power of sharks has always inspired me. What has torn my heart into pieces is the image of sharks without their fin, floating lifelessly in the water, stripped of their power, stripped of their grace. Sometimes I imagine you tried to do that to me, making me feel weak and powerless, unable to swim through this water called life. I become a rotting corpse on the bottom of the ocean when you're around. You rip my confidence and you put it in a stew for yourself to eat. All for enjoyment. Ooh, I like that one. Ooh, we're gonna roll. Sharks Part 3. However, for me, unlike the sharks, I am the only one who can save myself from being ripped apart and I am the only one who can save myself from you, from your sharp dagger words that pierce my skin and tear my limbs off my body. For unlike the sharks, I can defend myself. I can harden my skin. I can go to therapy and talk about you. And I am becoming a new breed of shark with skin thicker. I'm becoming a different kind of shark with skin thicker than with skin thicker than the moon's crust. I am becoming better. Man, that one's kind of weak. I think we'll just have Sharks 1, Shark 2. Okay. I've been thinking a lot about Frank O'Hara and the way his cheery poems wrapped us up in his little hands, wrapped us up the sense of security and happiness. Every once in a while, this is bad. I've been thinking a little bit about Frank O'Hara and what he said about his poetry and his heart being open. It's a strange thing to think about, making your poetry open, because oftentimes poetry is such a personal thing. And I think Frank O'Hara capitalized on that. On making it a not so personal thing, but personal enough that everyone can relate to it. Oh, fuck it, that's a bad poem. I like to imagine that my life is being narrated by a poor, bewildered man like Nick Carraway from The Great Gatsby. And I am this person full of mystique and awe, caught up in a whirlwind of my own making. Of course, I always forget the fantasies often crash down like bodies into a pool in the worst way. And the poor, bewildered narrator is left all by himself. Ooh, no, okay. I have an idea about Manic and Great Gatsby. When I go manic, I feel like Gatsby, on top of the world, throwing all these lavish parties, spending money I shouldn't, pretending that nothing in the world matters. And I am at peace. I am a beautiful being that inspires awe from people around me. I like to imagine that the non-manic side of me looks back onto me like I'm Nick Carraway. No, okay. Sometimes when I'm the Great I really want to do a poem about Gatsby though. Like, I really want to do it. In my vain selfishness, I like to imagine that I am Gatsby and there is some poor bewildered author that I have strung along. We'll come back to this idea. I need to write that dream poem. I am so sick of effeminate people being considered weak. I'll have you know that I am strong. I don't remember. Okay. I'm tired of effeminate people being considered weak and clean and girly. I'll have you know that I forgot this poem, but I had it in my dream. Okay, I really want to write a Gatsby poem. Look, there's a raccoon. F. Scott Fitzgerald was onto something when he created the character Gatsby. I like to imagine myself as Gatsby when I'm manic. This being in life that never stops, always going to one place and another, spending money like I have it to spend, all the while secretly pining for something. My Daisy isn't really a person, but it's more of a state of mind. I crave to be normal, but when I'm manic, I don't care about that. I just want to throw parties and have fun. I imagine that my therapist is Nick Carraway, listening to my manic tales, bewildered but pulled along, all the while trying to get me to slow down. And just like Gatsby, every single time I ungracefully swan dive into a pool, not shot by an angry husband, not shot by an angry widower, but shot by my own stupidity of going manic, my own brain shooting me in the fucking head as I swan dive from this manic high into the depressive low. And I leave my therapist, like Nick Carraway, scratching her head, thinking, what the hell am I gonna do with this?